Yo, what is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Exposing Powerful Lies. We're here, little afternoon streaming, day streaming. You know it's too early because look at this, dude. The sun, it's like fuzzying out the picture. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to streaming so early, man. It's hot out here, but I'm really happy with the guests that we got today. We've got our friends, the Disgruntled Docs and PBF live. Super excited for today's show. All of their links are in the description. They got their YouTube links and their Instagram links. I was surprised to see they actually have quite a lot of Instagram followers. So go over to their YouTube and subscribe to their YouTube. Let's see what else. Before we get started, if you guys want to support the show, please send in super chats via CashApp, PayPal, and Venmo. Links are in the chat and in the description. You can also support us over on Patreon. Thanks to our patrons, Jason, James, and Anna. Thank you guys so much for that. Follow EPL Clips and follow our Rumble channel. So other than that, we're on the porch. So if the mailman shows up, these stupid soy planes fly overhead, please bear with us. And without further ado, let me mute my mic because of this plane and let us welcome our guests, PBF and Disgruntled Docs.
Yo, what's up, brother?
Yo, what's going on, guys?
Hey, so you're surprised at how many followers? Actually, the number of followers that we have on this one, this is the 41st iteration. So we were at what was it, man? We were at like 160 or 170,000 followers.
Dang.
One time we got zapped, and then we had 85,000 and we got zapped. And this one, it just takes a while to get back up there. But after all these iterations, man, we just keep getting we lose more and more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely could understand why. I know you guys do a lot of good work, talking about a lot of the issues that like to get pushed under the rug in the military and all that. And that's one of the big things I wanted to talk to you guys about. But yeah, I'm a little late to to your guys' work. I'm a little late to the game. I think I first discovered you guys through I think Church of the Eternal Logos when you went on his channel.
Oh yeah,
way back when.
That was about a year and a half ago, I think.
Yeah, that was the first time I had heard of you guys, and then I saw you had Jay on at one point, and I know both of you guys do some YouTube stuff too. But so is it mainly the Instagram, or what's your main platform?
I don't know if we've got a main because we've got a lot of platforms. I guess it's probably the Instagram because we haven't been on Facebook for a while because it kind of got to the point with Facebook that every time we'd go on there, we'd offended so many people that we got kicked off. Because I mean, there's the military side, but it's always been about like cultural issues too. It kind of crosses over. Like it started out with military stuff, but it's definitely gotten more cultural. And then on that culture side of things. It was ultimately like the goal has been to find the truth and the trying to always demonstrate the truth, finding out that the truth is more than just an idea, that the truth is a man. And so, it was along that pathway of, and believe me, I kind of went kicking and screaming into that sort of, like as I was trying to approach this stuff because, especially when I was in the military, I was a degenerate. Like I was a competitive degenerate, I was talking to a buddy of mine this week and it was always sort of the thing as to, wouldn't you back me up in this, Doc, man?
It's
like
drinking and girls or like more than that too? Yeah.
Oh, it'd be more than that too at times, because it was like, definitely like drinking and girls, but
it's also like an edginess to it. It's like who can be the most edgy and it's a way of kind of being like that. That's so
is that why? Is that why there's those memes of like the army guys putting bananas down their throats and shit? I was always looking at that like, what is this? Why are there so many army guys deep throating bananas?
I think it's Navy particularly as well.
Yeah.
But you know what though? It's not just Navy too, man. But because it's like there's this whole thing. It's called gay chicken. And so it's always like, how uncomfortable can you make the guys with you and you can get away with stuff? And so like, it can get pretty gay. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? It can dive deep, man.
It's Pride Month every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, like it was Pride year and it's always been that way. Especially in the Navy.
You talked about getting a lot of hate, and I could totally see that because you guys are like, you're like dead in the middle, right? You don't have the support, I'm sure, of the people that are like, hoorah, we love the military, we're all about America, let's go. You know what I mean? Like the typical boomer conservative type, like they're just blank slate. The military's good, and anybody that doesn't, that has a problem with it can get the hell out. But then on the other side, the people that like despise the military, I'm sure they don't like you guys because you're veterans and you're not like, on their side either. So I could totally see being
that's kind of why it's interesting, because isn't that really, I think in some ways when you parallel it with like orthodoxy, because orthodoxy is not like again, it's that search for truth, and in searching for truth you've got to be honest, and in choosing to be honest you have to recognize that things that you support when there's shortcomings, because it's not like, because it's like that do or die type of thing. It weakens you. It really does. And
right.
What do you think, man, Doc?
Yeah, it's hard to be in the spot where you're in this like medium in between both things. You know what I mean? And it's like to quote, it's that royal path where, like you said, it's like we've seen the inside of the military and all that it entails. And at first you do kind of blindly support it because you're not really aware of all the intricacies in the history and all the things that kind of go into how we've gotten into all these wars. But you just think of like, hey, we've been packaged this deal of like my freedoms and I'm going to go fight for, America and all this. But then other people bring up the point of like, no, it's just for the military industrial complex. And the more you actually kind of dig into it, then you get put it like for us that we've been like supportive of everyone in the military because we were in it. But then as you kind of matured, you kind of start realizing, wait, the other side kind of has a point. Like, so we do get stuck in this in between and in that dialectic of like, oh, if you serve, you're good. Well, if you don't serve, you're bad. But it's like, but if you serve, you're bad. And it's like, so yeah, it's tough sometimes being caught in that middle. But we try to kind of bridge that between people, and Orthodoxy kind of does the same thing, where it's just like, you know, you're in the world, but you're not supposed to be of it, and you try to like walk that fine line of not going too much on either side. So
that's definitely the thing about dialectics is it's so easy to go from one to the other, you know, to flip flop from extremes, and the middle is much harder to get to. It seems like it's a further distance, right, from extreme to middle than it is from extreme to extreme. So with Orthodoxy, you know, as David Patrick Harry has said a lot of times, it's really almost always the collapsing of these different dialectics in so many different ways. I see somebody in the audience is asking what the subject of the show is. So today, so that's actually funny. I'm glad that you said that, because I named it like a sort of clickbaity type title, right? It's a Christian perspective on the military. That's not for the audience here. Y'all already know what we're doing here, but you know, for people afterwards, I just titled it something that somebody might be looking up. So we are going to cover a little bit, just we're all Orthodox Christians, right? So we're talking about the military, we're talking about their experiences. So the subject is just whatever the heck we end up getting into. But I did want to ask you guys about how, you know, your stories, because I don't know the stories yet. I'm sure you've talked about this a million times, but each of you, if you want to tell me sort of how you got into the military and how you started this work and all that stuff.
Do you want to go first, Jude, or you want me to
go?
So are you gonna go?
Yeah.
Go.
Oh, okay.
Go.
So I kind of joined the military like based on just I'd reached a point in my life where I needed something like new to kind of get away from a lot of things. And I always kind of had the feeling that I was going to join just because I had family who had been in Vietnam and all that. And then I was just like, I knew it was a good stepping stone. And the life I was leading to previous to that was like drugs and all kinds of like crazy stuff. And I just needed to get away, start something new. So I did that. And then I was in for 12 years and I was a corpsman, or for those that don't know, it's like a medic, you know what I mean, for the Navy. Deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, did a few humanitarian missions overseas, and just through all that, like just kind of seeing the different aspects of life, and just it left me really empty. And even though I was like Christian, I grew up Protestant, like I never really like took it serious at all, just because like now that I'm seeing like the fullness of how things are, like it's completely changed my perspective. But the long story short is it's been that just searching for eventually the truth of what Christianity and what I believe in. And then the last 2-3 years was kind of like when things kind of became a little more serious, especially during the whole jabby thing and getting people kicked out. And that for me was like a huge wake up call, because I asked my pastor during that time, I was like, hey, yo, bro, I need you to write me a letter of religious exemption. And he's like, no, I can't do that. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And that for me, I was like, okay, I got to find something else. And I had been friends with Romeo for quite some time. Like we have history and going back. But with like memes and like the DD page, I've been doing this since 2014. So we've been doing memes since that time on Facebook, and same thing, kind of similar. We've had 7-8 iterations of the page, and it was a few admins, and now it's been just me on my own. And like I still talk to all the other old admins and the boys, but now it's just been me, and just kind of trying to like build that gap, or like build that bridge between like military and like Christianity, and especially like the church. So I've been trying to kind of do that.
It's really useful, man. You got a really good page. Before PBF gets into his story, I got a bone to pick with you, all right? Because I really like your page. I really like it, especially like I actually have it pulled up. I was going to show the audience some of it. It's crazy, some of the conditions of these military bases, like the disgusting water that comes out of the tap, like brown water and the black mold everywhere. But then, like, I don't know, a couple months ago, you just started posting pictures of people's foot getting the skin peeled off, and all this nasty, like just the nastiest shit. I'm scrolling through Instagram and I'm like, oh God, what is this? Like, so yeah, you hit me with that.
I have to keep like a balance where it's just like I still enjoy a lot of the medical stuff, and it's like I'm also like in this weird in between where it's like I enjoy the medical, I enjoy the medicine, and like
Right.
But then there's also that other big pharma side that it just completely it makes me not like it. So like I'm stuck in this in between. So
that does make sense. Okay, I never thought about the fact that you
yeah.
were a corpsman and a doctor. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah. So
fine. I'll accept that.
so it's like I still like doing a little bit of educational things of like, hey, and there's a meme that kind of goes where it's like, take care of your feet. You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's change your socks, water, Motrin. You have anything that's wrong with you, those 3 things will cure it. You know, I mean, like all things, because that's the majority of injuries.
I have some knowledge of that too, because I used to do the train hopping thing, and we walked 20 miles a day sometimes, and so keeping care of your feet was like the most important thing. It's like if your feet get messed up, you're laid up. You're not going nowhere. So.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I still have to do the kind of stereotypical medic corpsman meme thing of ibuprofen water and change your socks. But I still enjoy it, like the medicine aspect and all the boys and stuff. But I do try to kind of tell them like, hey, there's more, like there's better. But yeah.
Right. So last question before PBF goes. What era of the military, like who was president when you joined the military?
Obama. 2012. No, I joined in 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010. So it was during the Obama administration, and it was it was a little different back then because like it hadn't gone to the fullness of what kind of it's turned into now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my seniors used to tell me, they're like, dude, just do your 5 years and get out. And then I didn't realize like what they meant, but they had seen the writing on the wall like a long time ago. So it just now it's kind of like.
Are you still in, or are you?
No, I'm out now. I got out last year, so thank God. I wish I would have spent like my time a little more wiser, but it'd be like that sometimes.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep pushing PBF back, but I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you later about the differences in how it changed and basically.
Yeah.
So, all right, yeah, PBF, tell us a little bit about your story.
So I'm going to be a little more vague than him. I just prefer it that way. I don't talk like too many specifics. Prior to the military, I was like a punk rock kid growing up, skater punk rock kid. Nobody thought I was going to do well in the military. I do come from a family of quite a few people, like generations people served in the military, but I never thought I would go in. I ran into a situation where I had my vehicle in really bad shape and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I ended up deciding to go to the military ultimately. I didn't even know if I was going to make it. I'll be honest with you when I first made it in, because I have a big mouth. It might come as a shock or a surprise to people who listen to me and stuff like that. Usually I'm pretty shy and reserved, but I had to, but that was actually a good thing with the military because it taught me to really like learn to keep my mouth shut, because I always like, if somebody said something, I was always willing to get in people's faces, you know what I mean? And kind of be back. And so it taught me a lot. And I made, like even now it's kind of an interesting thing. And, Doc, you can talk about this too as well. Like the best people and the worst people I met were in the military. It's quite the dichotomy. But like my closest friends are all vets and even active duty people now.
Right.
Now I was asked by one of our old admins, because I don't even know, dude. We've probably had like 50 plus 60 admins come through like PBF stuff. Because, dude, we've had a lot of iterations of the page and everything.
Yeah.
And one of the guys at one point just asked me to join up, and I did. And, I've been around since like 2012 as a part of this. And at that point, it was all strictly military focused at that point. We used to do things like we were rude, man. Like, I'm not going to lie, and part of it was just, I think definitely like our egos, it was fun to make fun of things, but I don't think it was always.
I don't know anything about that, man. I mean, that's definitely not the whole point of my channel.
But the thing is, like, so we would do this stuff like we do Fat Body Fridays. Right. Fat Body Fridays, it was this thing where we would make fun of people like in uniforms and They were just rolling out of the uniforms. And then we'd have like Wook Wednesdays, and a Wook is a female military member. And so, it was highlighting. And so it could be, generally it was negative, know? And so, I mean, that was a lot of that type stuff. And ultimately, and that's part of the thing, kind of why some of this is low key too, as well, is because like we got investigated by Congress. And this was back when Facebook was actually cool about stuff, because Congress came and asked for like all our information and everything. And there's one guy, he still floats in and out. He goes by Lucky. He's been on some of the podcasts, because we've done like over 100 podcasts now. If you guys like look us up on the apps and everything. And so you'll find Lucky on there, and he's done some with Doc and I as well, because he's exploring a lot of the orthodoxy and things like that as well. Glory to God with that. So kind of in between, like as we're coming to that, so let me fill in some of the gaps. So as I became a part of that, one of the things that I became really concerned about, well, I mean, I got bored always talking about the military, so we spread into more like cultural type things, and then we kind of started doing a lot more of the meme, because it used to be just like long form writing, a lot of us. Then in the process of doing that, we started digging into some of the things like the Wounded Warrior Foundation. And it's one of those things that a lot of people think that like the Wounded Warrior Foundation, it's this great thing, but then you dig into their stuff, and what it is ultimately we were finding just like some real, it may have changed, I doubt it, but they've learned how to hide it better if it hasn't. But nevertheless, they were just raising money, and they would throw as much money as they do like entertainment parties, fundraiser type stuff, because their fundraisers were just parties, as they were throwing towards vets. And they're sending out socks, like to qualify, like, hey, we're actually helping out vets, guys. They're sending socks to guys with their legs blown off. Like we would have guys send us like these stories, like we just had our box full of all these horrible things. And so we started like
what a slap to the face, man. Wow.
Well, yeah, and it grows out of, because, like First Blood, John Rambo, like these guys came back from Vietnam, they were treated horribly. So now we have to treat the military well. And so what it's done is it's made the military and anything adjacent to the military untouchable. And that's really like the danger that's kind of grown out of a lot of that. And you can see it in these charities, because like there's even the ridiculous thing where, you get charities based upon like the vet suicide type stuff. But all it is like, hey, I'm going on social media, I'm going to do 22 push-ups. I just saved. And it's like, no, you didn't do anything.
Isn't it sad? Like nowadays, if I, see a charity, my automatic instinct is that it's just corrupt and terrible. I mean, a lot of these charities, they have a board of directors, and then they get a salary. And so a lot more money than you think is going to people, paying people, even though it's a nonprofit, so.
Well, and the thing that was really crazy about it, and I don't remember exactly the specific numbers. I'd have to dig back through, because it's been years since we did this, but they were like, for example, they had like $500 million in the bank, or 400. It was 400 some million. Right. They were spending like 20 million on vets, and they spent like almost 30 million on their parties. Do you know what I mean? And so they were building up like this thing, and they were putting people, what do you want to say? Like they made it in their contracts that they couldn't even, they couldn't discuss what was going on. And they were just really horrible people.
Yeah. Non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah. And so there was that. And then there was the other stuff people doing. And I mean, dude, there's been so many vultures since all of the war stuff that's gone on. Yeah. And what I was seeing was there were a lot of vets too that were hurting bad. Like, and I mean, and I'm sure Doc's got this as much as well. I can't even tell you how many dudes I know killed themselves.
Yeah. Well, as a hobo train rider, I know that a lot of military guys will end up start hopping trains. They're homeless, and then they end up traveling like that. I knew a lot of veterans that were train riders.
And so, I was trying to help guys with PTSD, just between like, it was kind of, again, low key behind the scenes. And it's not like, hey, I'm a cool guy. Look what I was doing. I was just I would get guys high. And then I was getting guys like doing mushrooms and things like that, just ways to try to break the cycle. Now, in the process of me doing that stuff, I was coming at this from more sort of an atheistic, agnostic kind of way. And then I started seeing, like, I started seeing demons. So like, if I'm seeing demons and I'm like, whoa, then there's something real here.
Those are just the nature spirits, bro. They're here to help.
It's the elves, brother.
Yeah, it's the machine elves.
Yeah.
And so it was in that process though too, because then I was still losing people, and I went to one guy's. He had killed himself over Memorial Day weekend. I went to his church service the week after, and I go into this church, and this is at a point too where like, okay, obviously I'm reconnecting with God at this point, but at this point too, I mean, like, competitive degeneracy. Believe me, I put all my effort into winning the competitive degeneracy. So I wasn't sure, like, obviously coming from this side, and if anybody's listening, take this to heart. If you feel like you don't belong there, the people that are there want you the most, because they know you're hurting and they know that this will help. This is medicine. But I wasn't at that point yet. So, I was slowly approaching this and everything like that. And basically, as I'm sitting at the church where this guy I'm at, in this church, man, it's covered. There's more LGBTQ stuff on the walls than there is things of Jesus. And this is way before, or not way before, but it's enough before COVID time too, as well, which sent things into overdrive in the summer of love. And so I was just like, as I'm got this more sober mind to reality of things. Because trust me, this previous to that, like, as I was getting people high, I was smoking a lot of weed myself, involved in things like that. Like, dude, seriously, just to give a perspective, and this is the part of just, I guess, the degeneracy. Like, I would wake up, I'd smoke. I would at lunchtime at work, I'd smoke. I would eat edibles at night. And I had friends where we used to compete to see who could eat the most edibles. And at that point, you're like hallucinating, like it's heavy duty amounts of things like that.
I've definitely been there in my life too. Smoking like all day, every day, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like, when you're doing that, you're operating mentally at best at like 80% of your capacity, probably less than that.
Oh yeah.
And I knew that, and I could feel that. And so I was trying to get out of some of that stuff. So from that point on, I was like, something's really wrong. Like, I had these things, and I was contemplating the things I was seeing around me, the way the world was shifting, the way people were shifting, everything like that. Couldn't put my finger on it, but it was, like listening to a podcast one time. It had Jim Bob, Tristan, and Jay Dyer were on it.
Nice.
And it was the Boiler Room. I don't know if you ever listened to any of those. It was the guy Hesher.
Yeah, our brother, the Basil Analyzer, he does a lot of shows with Hesher and all those guys.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So on that episode, they talked about, and I think it was actually Tristan said that it's at this point too, like, I'm still trying to, like, I've got this rational view, trying to rationally approach the things that I was seeing. But they talked about reading Nihilism by Father Seraphim Rose and getting an Orthodox study Bible. And I wasn't ready to get a study Bible because that meant I was really committed. You know what I mean? And I was still trying to find my way to it, even though, like, in my heart, I want to do it, but there was that resistance to it at the same time. But I got the Nihilism book, and by the second chapter of that, everything in my mind that I had seen in the world, the degeneracy of the world, the nihilism of the world, he had captured. And he had articulated, because it's Father Seraphim Rose, like, he articulated.
So good. I highly recommend everybody check that out. That book was instrumental in my conversion as well.
Yeah, man. And it's like one of those things, like, you just put it down and you're like, whoa. And it's like, because it's sort of like what we're seeing now, and we continue to see with people. It's the constant revolutionary spirit, and we, in our egotistical ways, think that we're going to make things better without God. And we, even with religion, like with a lot of the Protestantism, it's the idea that I can sit down and read my Bible and I can interpret it my way, and it's all going to be good because, I'm smarter and more rational, and just reject all those things.
For most people, making the world better seems to be like the whole goal, like they're operating off of this idea that, like, we got to do this to make the world a better place,
Yeah. And the thing is too, is like, if you want to make the world a better place, you got to fix yourself. It's got to start at home. And so I started, I finally, like, broke through, like, I do drive-bys on churches, but then I finally went in and started, like, doing it, everything like that. And then I committed to it. And it was funny too, when I started doing this, because, like, our name and our brand although we had like that whole thing, like we were honest, truthful people, we also promoted a lot of degeneracy. Like we were kind of proud of that, like it was a mixed bag of what we were doing. And so I expected when I brought this up to people that like I was going to have to do something different, but pleasantly, I was surprised, glory to God, that, people actually accepted it. And there was a lot more people, and I think it's that what we see, especially now too, with a lot of the Orthodox churches as well, is people see this. And I think especially after like the Koof BS, but they see like how bad the world is.
Oh yeah. That time, that COVID time definitely woke a lot of people up. It brought a lot of people in the Orthodoxy. We noticed that, that time in particular, I've heard so many people share that, they discovered the church from during the lockdown. Because a lot of people were indoors and watching streams and stuff, and the internet has been such a great tool for spreading information.
Well, and the thing is, like, I'm really glad that I had found this beforehand, because I mean, it was I'd already started to develop like discernment to some of the things that were going on, and so. I mean, it was rather quick after everything started going that I was like, whoa, this is really wrong. Like when they're shutting churches down and everything else like that, I was like, wow, no, this, even in Constantinople, when the Black Plague was going around, they weren't shutting stuff down, and now they're shutting stuff down. But I mean, yes, but the thing is, though, that's the great thing of that. And that's the thing of evil, is evil will show people also truth. Like people are going to go one way or the other, really. Like they keep going down certain paths. So I'm sorry, I've
definitely
I've gone a really
stop talking, dude. Why are you talking?
No, it's
that look at your logo.
It's that Burger King I ate that got me going. I didn't eat Burger King.
He's not gonna let me forget that I ate the slop. I know.
You got your nutritious meal going before you came here.
It's that BK Lounge, brother.
If they pay me, I'll eat on stream. Like some people, I guess, get rich doing that. So sure.
I think they're usually girls, but
brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Yeah. So you man, I've been writing notes as you were talking. Well, I heard you mention about LGBT in the military. So
Oof.
How about yeah, let's get into that nice uncontroversial subject. How was it when you first got in compared to sort of later on, and did you notice a shift in that, or
yeah. Well, for like me, I joined in 2010, so the don't ask, don't tell was still like a huge policy, and like people were very discreet about it. Like even though like you could tell, you know what I mean, like when you look at someone, it's just like, okay, bro.
Like if they were you could tell if they were in a Navy uniform,
Yeah.
You could tell.
Well, I'm also originally from California, so that should tell you something.
Right.
From SoCal, so like, yeah. So I could tell, you know what I mean? Especially I joined the Navy, so it makes it even worse. But everyone was kind of super quiet about it, and like you were like, okay, whatever. Like I didn't care back then, but even though I was quote unquote Christian, I was like, bro, anyone can do whatever they want. It's none of my business. But yeah, as like things kind of changed, and then that got turned over, then that was kind of like that initial kind of like push into the more like little by little. And it was just like, oh, like they have a day. And then eventually it turned into like this huge thing. And just what it's turned into now is just like it's pushed on every aspect, like especially leading up to June and all that, and just even military bases. And we posted about stuff like that, where it was like the alphabet stuff coming on, and then eventually into the drag queen story hour for kids, and they're doing that on bases and stuff like that. And it's just like, bro, like how fast did all this kind of just happen? And it went from, and it didn't really get too bad until the last like 2-3 years, where it was just in your face. And like we'd have like little meetings and stuff like when I was still in, and it's just like, hey, like we're doing this thing and we're supporting all this stuff, and it's like, why? Like,
right, why are we talking about this? This is so weird. Like, why is this the focus?
Yeah, and it's like, if you really think about it, the military is just a war fighting organization. That's all it is. Like, you're fighting for the banks, not for freedom, TM. But and it's like, what's the focus of this? Like, oh, well, everyone's like special, everyone's their own. Who cares? We're all numbers. That's all we are.
Right.
I have a DOD ID number. So does they. They don't care who we are, as long as you're doing your job and you're just another cog in the machine. So
yeah,
like
I just mentioned about this the other day. I was at work and I was at a gas station. I held the door open because two sheriffs were walking over, and the one, as soon as he walked by, I looked and he had like the eyelashes and the lipstick and all this makeup. I was like, what? Yeah, it was a transgender sheriff, and I was like, oh boy. I'm like, man, we're in trouble, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the state religion. You know, like there's no denying it. This is the state religion. You know, you brought
state enforced homosexuality, brother.
That's what's so funny, right? Because I remember when that skit first came out, Sam Hyde, and I was like, oh, that's funny, but that's never going to happen. That's only what, like 5-6 years ago that he did that. And, you know, look where we are now. And I mean, that's legit, like special privileges. And, you know, you can burn an American flag, but you can't burn a gay flag. That's a hate crime when you burn a gay flag.
Yeah, it's gotten so bad. I've considered starting another channel where I'm just pro everything, right? And seeing like how fast that one blows up compared to this one. I'll start another channel where I'm like transgender and I'm liberal and I'm pro globalism and I'm you know what I mean? And just like go all in on the troll and really see how serious.
That's a lot of like with that Instagram at times that we've got now. There's been a lot of that because it's really over the top stuff. And it's funny though, because some people don't get it. Like they either get really upset. They don't see, I mean, dude, it's so completely exaggerated. I don't know how, but yeah, I guess in clown world, maybe it's hard to discern. I don't know, but
now,
people don't.
What do you think is the reason why that they're pushing that stuff so hard, especially in the military? I know that it's in all the culture, but I've definitely seen a lot to do with the military and the promotion of LGBT. Do you think there's a goal for all that? Do you think there's a reason why they're pushing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like the underlying destruction of America, you know, like to just the overall, you know, to go in concert with, you know, attacking men for like the toxic masculinity. So simultaneously you promote something that you attack men and you say the masculinity is wrong. And then on the other side, if you decide to take female hormones and call yourself a girl, then you'll get special privileges. So if they're granting special privileges in that area, why are they doing that? I mean, there's that surface level, and then, you know, it's the Ephesians principalities and powers type thing that's really driving a lot of this. Like, you know, they're playing chestnut checkers when they're doing these things, and it's a long-term goal from the evil demonic forces to do these things. And so ultimately it goes back to that.
I definitely agree. That's the way I see it too, is that it's just the weakening of America. It's like, you know, they were talking a while back about comparing the Russian military recruitment ad and then the American one, where the American one's like a cartoon and it's like diversity, pride flag. And then
here's why Emma and her two moms are going to win.
Yeah. In the Russian one, they're putting war paint on and it's just a bunch of guys looking angry.
Like, bro, nothing beats the like 90s to 2000s early like military, like just that propaganda was like on point, brother. Like, just
dude, those old Marine ones too, with the
defeat the dragon, like whoa. Yeah.
The few, the proud.
And then there was also the army of one. Be an army of one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that was big when I was in school for sure.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is that like a majority of like the military, they come from very conservative backgrounds. You know what I mean? So it's like if you take that aspect, a lot of dudes come from Texas. Midwest,
Appalachia too.
Yeah, Appalachia. Ding, 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 ding. Brother, you're on the wrong side of the mountain. But
sure do look pretty.
And it's like it's a degradation of that because it's like you're exposed to it little by little. You know what I mean? And eventually, it's like, oh, it's like that slippery slope. You know what I mean? It's that little you give them so much little room to eventually. It's just like, bro, how do we get here? And even it happens to a lot of that. And sometimes like people don't see it until it's like right in front of them. And I've seen a lot of people too, where it's just like, they come to this struggle of like, well, I have my beliefs, but I don't want to step over anyone. But it's just like, then they're giving them more room and sacrificing their own personal beliefs and what's right and true over my feelings and stuff like that. So I think that's another aspect as well. And then a lot of that stuff drives out the good people that eventually all they want is NPCs that just do as they're told.
That definitely seems like what it's happening. I mean, I just know stories from people I know in real life that are saying, you know, we lost a lot of good people who left the military because of the changes that were happening. Yeah.
And that happened within like my last 2 years. And like the jab was like a perfect example of that. And even though like the evidence was like surmounting against the effects and everything else, people were like, which like, look, I get it. I understand. We all have families, we all have things, but it's just like morals, principles come before that. And it's like, I had my trust in God, and it was like, you know, I was a little shaky during that point. I'm not even going to lie to you, because it's just like, what am I going to do? Like, if like if I get out. And eventually I was like, you know what? I can't give in on this one thing, because it's like, I see the way it's going, and it's only a precursor to something that's going to be worse later on. So I was
glory
just
to
like,
God for that, because that definitely transcends not just the military, but I mean, in all aspects of all sorts of different professions, people have to make that same choice where it's like, what am I willing to say no to? You know, where's my line? And we've had people call in and tell stories like that, where they're like, I was a nurse and I spent 7 years in school, or, you know, whatever. And they were going to fire me if I know people in my real life that lost, you know,
same. And like, I feel for them. I truly do. Like, it's sad that it's like a lot of people were put in this position, but it's like, at the end of the day, like, it's going to get worse. And it's like, if you don't start doing it now, and like reading the lives of the saints has just been like, just amazing, because you read about these people, and it's just like the things that they went through, like physically and torturous, has just been, it's nothing compared to, like, granted, most of the stuff that we're going to, like Father Seraphim Rosa said, it's all psychological. The psyops have just been continuously. So it's like, I don't blame people, but at the same time, it's like, brother, like, you have a computer in your hand, like, use it a little bit more frequently in a better way. And that was one thing for me that it was a lot of memes that kind of like woke me up. And then funny enough, I was posting Christian memes during that time, and I sent a picture of Father Josiah Trenum to Romeo without realizing who it was. And he's like, oh, that's Father Josiah, bro. You should look him up. And I'm like, okay.
He's one of the best.
Yeah. And that's what really got me into looking into Orthodoxy. And then also I was looking for a way out of, like, there has to be a church that is not giving in. And then that's how I got into Father Peter Heers, who he was speaking out against a lot of that stuff. And Romeo was sending a lot of stuff my way. And then we started pushing that stuff out as well.
Yeah, Father Peter Heers was instrumental, especially with the exemption for the jab.
And like, I used that one, and then I started sending that out to other people and like recommending it to a lot of people. And so that was a huge thing for me,
what do you know?
Like a lot of military people. And
now he's getting all the hate, you know. Just recently, especially, he was getting a big push against Father Heers. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too, because I was talking with Father Turbo about this too, and it's like, you know, he not only was it the vaccine that he helped a lot of people out on, which I'm, you know, just full stop. That's a satanic sacrament, you know, like full stop. And so there's that aspect, but you know, I can remember, because I've been following him for quite some time. He did a whole episode 2 on yoga and how demonic yoga is. And so when you've got somebody with the level of discernment that he's got, you know, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, look at what happened to St. John Chrysostom. And you could go down a list of all of these people who just stuck to their guns, or I guess swords, whatever it was at that time, but they stuck to it, and they're going to be persecuted because you tell the truth. You know, and especially when you're telling the truth, and the truth is man, and you're telling it from that perspective, you're going to be attacked, because this is, I mean, it's Satan's playground, this world. For sure. So when you're doing that, I mean, one of the things that's great though too is he stood strong during all of this, because what's really amazing is you see it's these whatever they call themselves Orthodox people attacking him, but they're ecumenists that are going after him, and these are people who are basically driving towards that. Hey man, all religions have a little bit of truth in it, so why don't we just brothers? Why don't we just go ahead and do the Eucharist with a Catholic? I mean, what's the problem, Francis, bro? Yeah. You know, and
he's got the keys, bro. Come on.
My keys.
He's got Gladio on his side, you know, like it's But it's amazing to see that. And then for that guy, what was interesting to see when they were attacking him was that they're trying to say that he's too what do you want to say, like too strict, too legalistic. Yeah, they're saying he's too legalistic. But when they attack him and when they used like that crappy little form letter that came out, like, oh, he's not attached to anyone, then they're being legalistic, which is what's really funny. Like they came back trying to, and it was hilarious on the Royal Path because that dude showed up in there, gay or whatever his name is.
Ben Gaby. I might be Gaby. Yeah.
He showed up there. Like he came to the wrong neighborhood. Like he thought he was going to come in there and attack Father Peter when Father Peter was on there. And everybody's like, bro, just get out of here. Nobody wants to hear your trash. Go away.
Well, that's what's so great because about the physiognomy of people is it's like a lot of times you'll see these people writing these terrible takes on Twitter or whatever, and then when you see the video, you can just see it. You see the person that's actually telling the takes, and I think Gabe is a perfect example of that. It's like, that's what I thought you looked like.
No.
I would have assumed.
And it's funny too because you look historically at how people became priests, and then what's interesting is these people think that because they've attended these, whether it's Saint Vlad's or Saint Tikhon's, that somehow they hold some moral high ground, and that's where that guy comes from,
right?
And they don't even teach people pastoral things. It's very theoretical type of things. It's very. Again, they're getting into a legalistic.
It's scholasticism, legalism.
Yes.
It's almost like an academic mindset. I've been to Yale.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so now that they hold some higher ground, and it's like I always want to wonder what somebody like that thinks of like Saint Paisios.
Right.
Yeah. I imagine they don't like Saint Paisios. Because
that is orthodoxy. A monk in the desert. Like pure humility. Not sipping tea with your advanced degrees and stuff, not that there's not room for obviously for knowledge and intellectualism.
No, dude, I mean
the heart of orthodoxy can be understood by the simplest peasant, in the woods, like,
dude, 100%, because I mean there's obviously because like Father Peter himself is a very well-educated man,
right.
But Father Peter himself gives a lot of ground to people like Saint Paisios because it's not one or the other. It's the
both and.
Both and.
Would you? Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm going deaf.
No, absolutely. No, it is always both and is what DPH says a lot, and it's so true. And that ties back into the dialectics.
Breaking of them. About. Yeah.
Am I breaking up?
No, the breaking of that dialectic. Yeah. That it's like people want to have like this black and white of just like no. Sometimes it's both and that's one thing that's been.
Yeah.
It's wild.
One thing he mentioned was that seeing the church standing up against the Kuf stuff and the jab and all that, and that bringing in a lot of people. There's another side to that too, where people, that's why they started looking into orthodoxy, or that's one of the things that convinced them. And then they get to a local parish, and then they were disappointed because their parish wasn't standing up as much as they thought that it should be. And then we've seen a lot of people get dissuaded or down on it because they thought that it would be perfect, right? And it's like the church is perfect, but the humans,
right?
The humans aren't always perfect, and sometimes they make mistakes, and a lot of parishes suffered under COVID.
Well, I think there's that, but you had entire affiliations where the dictates were coming down from the patriarchs.
Gorge.
What'd you say?
Nothing. I think he just coughed.
That's a cough. It's a coof.
Oh yeah. OCA. Well, and you saw that stuff.
Man, you guys need some cough medicine or something.
I know, dude. There's something going around.
Actually, no, I am coughing IRL.
I guess it's that summer coof is going around. Excuse us. It'll happen every once in a while, so forgive me ahead of time before I do that. But you've got people like Father Deacon Ananias.
Yes.
You've got Father Zachary. Zechariah.
Zechariah Lynch. Yeah,
Zechariah Lynch. That's
great.
Yeah, and he was basically like condemned from, you know, like
because he's so base, dude. He just comes right out and says it. Like if you go on Patristic Faith and read his articles, they're so good. They're so good. He pulls no punches, you know.
Yeah, I have a tree fund too.
Yep, tree fund, all of them. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, and all of those people are. I mean, that was a funny too last year with Abbott Tree Fund. You know, he was holding on to a gun that wasn't even like a gun that it was not a functioning gun. Yeah, it was a prop gun, but the way people jumped on that, and it's just that's what's amazing too to see some of these Fordham University type Orthodox jump on and try to go after him. It's crazy to see like in real time to understand what's going on. Where you see like these Fordham types,
yeah, as though Abbott Tree Fund's like this like Instagram influencer. You know, he's an old monk, dude. Like, why are you attacking our old monks, you know?
Well, it's funny too, like if you hear a story, like this is a guy who was an atheist in San Francisco, and oddly enough, you know, like Father Seraphim though was more you know, Eastern type thing, but they find their way into a temple in San Francisco, both of them, and it changes their lives forever. Right. You know, and that's the thing too, like I try to, because so many times, man, like I run into people that they talk about orthodoxy and they want to say they're Orthodox, but they don't want to go to church. And it's like, bro, like that's like 80% of it, you know, like that participation. If you've, I mean, even, you know, a lot of people said, even if you don't have it, you know, like the spirit is there because, you know, Christ is going to work through the priest regardless. But that whole experience of the divine liturgy, like there's nothing like that. And I mean, you've experienced it and Doc too, as well. I mean, like, I couldn't even imagine, like, for me, Sunday, even when I was a kid growing up, like, yeah, I enjoyed some of the church stuff, but it's just not the same thing as what you experience in the divine liturgy, right?
Yeah, no, it's way different. Like, nothing compares to it. Or even just Pascha. Like, I remember it as a Roman Catholic, and then I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're up late, like, whatever. This is kind of cool. And then, you know, now it's just like, whoo, like even going through like I can't remember the name of the service, but the funeral service right before that, like like Friday night, Saturday.
Yeah,
man, like it was like the first time in my life that it was like it hit a spot that I didn't even know like I had, you know what I mean?
It's holy.
It's just like
it's the first time seeing something truly holy.
Yeah, and it's like I was actually I've buried friends and I've been at their funerals, right, and it hit harder than that, and I was like, man, we really like did this to Christ, and it was just like, and it hits you like nothing else before, and just, but yeah, even just the liturgy, it's like when you're in it, it's
eternal.
Yeah,
100%, man. I mean, that's one thing that I think people can recognize almost right away when their first time go into a liturgy is, even if they can't put their finger on it, they just know this is different. You know, this is very different from what I'm used to.
Well, you know what's funny too, because you guys were talking about that, and I know this year for Pascha, for Lent, like when we were leading up to like Forgiveness Sunday and like that first week, I had such a huge like dread like leading up to it. I'm like, oh man, because it's such a big thing. Like when you've experienced it, you realize what's going on. And I was talking to Father Turbo, and I was just like, I didn't even want to do it this year, you know. But I was like, but then once it hit, like, okay, let's go. But it's just it's intense, and to know, like, to really like you recognize what we did, like it hurts, man, it hurts. But I mean, but you know what? That was what was necessary at the end of the day. Like that's one of the things that I don't think that Catholicism gives us enough credit really to, is like what actually did that do? That fixed what we did to the world through Adam and Eve and his descent into Hades and everything like that. And you understand that, because that's something I didn't understand until I became Orthodox, you know?
No, for sure. And I mean, that's one thing that they always say is, you know, healing is painful, right? It hurts, but a lot of the things we do in our Christian life, you know, they're not the most comfortable, and a lot of times there's a lot of suffering involved. Oh yeah, and that's usually what helps to fix a problem. It's just same thing as going to a gym and working out. It's like it's gonna hurt, but you know,
or like physical therapy too. Like it's like that's one thing I always tell my guys. Yeah. It's like, look, it's gonna be bad for a bit, but if you continue listening in through these guidelines, it's it's going to help you out. And it's like, that's one thing that when I was talking to Father Michael Butler, Average to Alpha, I love him. He's awesome. But it's like the military has the same structure where it's just like, it's very structured. You have rules there to kind of help you out. And it's in that same way. And it's like Orthodoxy is no different. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that structure to kind of keep you safe and kind of like keep you within a certain guideline. So that way it's like, it'll have you focused on God and nothing else. But
yeah, one of the things I've heard specifically about the suffering thing is it's like, be careful what you pray for, right? God's like, oh, you got a problem? Okay, here's the answer. Pain, take the pain. You need it. You know?
Well, but that's also too, like a lot of times you hear, I mean, that's Christ knocking,
right?
You know, man. And so many people don't want to open that door, but that's really, it is the healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like to make it a little anecdote, like for me, like, I struggled with that a lot personally, because it's like I've seen my friends get blown up. I've driven over like IEDs and improvised explosive devices, right? That never went off, and they were perfectly fine. Like stuff that would like demolish vehicles, and nothing ever happened to me. And I had like survivor's guilt for a long time, and it's like, and I was kind of mad, like, which sounds dumb, right? It's like, God, like, why did my friends get hurt? Why wasn't it me? Like, and all this stuff. And it's like, or it should have been me. And like, I could never understand why. And now it's like, I've come a little bit more to terms. It's like, you know, it wasn't for me. And that's the hard part of trying to deal with that. And that's, you know, that aspect of like that pain is just like, okay, like sometimes we put ourselves in situations because we think that's what's better for us. And even like the military, like I don't regret it, you know what I mean? But now I'm trying to use all my experiences to learn from that and to find a way for God to use that. And, you know, somehow
all of us are in the same boat in that same way. You know, it's like all of us have done things, you know, in our lives that have led us up to this point, and some of it is good, some of it is bad. But, you know, all of it serves a greater purpose. And, I definitely, you know, am glad that I've had the experiences that I've had in my life, because I would be a totally different person. And I think I would be a lot less equipped in certain ways to help and to help myself and all of that. Before we get any further, I want to say thank you to Amptown for sending in. She's the first super chatter of the day, sends in $5, says, God bless you. Well, God bless you, Amptown. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to support the show, has any questions, or just wants to send in a tip, you can send it in via the links in the chat and in the description. One question I had for both of you was it's sort of a two-part. In your experience, was there a typical type of person who joins the military, which we kind of touched on a little bit, but not really? And then were there many people that you served with that you would consider fairly aware of like the NWO and like the way the world works, or was it generally like more normie-minded people?
So there's not a lot of people, I think. Well, okay. I guess there's a certain type of person that joins on certain things and certain jobs and stuff like that. You know, I mean, like you take like a combat arms type job, and it was something like Doc knocked out, you know, like it's a lot of like Southern boys. It's a lot of guys from Appalachia. There's a lot of those guys that participate in that.
Sort of good-hearted people that like love their country and want to serve. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of that too, right? Like,
well, that's the thing too, but that's also where they're struggling with now, is because it's just become so blatantly obvious, especially with the shots and everything. Like, you know, people recognize that it's just evil, like at a certain level, and I think we've reached a point now, especially after that, where I think where more people see it. And I mean, if somebody asks me now, like I never, even when it was prior to like some of that stuff, I was always like, yeah, just go ahead and get in. You know, you're gonna meet good people. You're gonna deal with a lot of BS, but at the end of the day, you know, there's gonna be solid people in the military. But it's been so overrun, and I think more people now are kind of aware of it. But I still don't think it's enough. I mean, like our audiences, I think, are pretty well aware of it, and we'll get pushback on it at times about certain things. But I think maybe some of it too is there's got to be a discomfort if you're participating in the military and you fully recognize like the evil the military serves at this point. You know, like you fully recognize it, because at least before, you know, maybe in our own naivete, we had become involved with it as well on a certain level. And, you know, you see things at times, and I wasn't necessarily a Pollyanna at times with a lot of things, but I still thought like there was enough people behind the scenes until I really started understanding the military industrial complex and how that all works and everything. And I mean, it's definitely too. I think as people go along in the military, especially when they get out, they see it. Looking back and looking at what's going on now. But I still think there's. I don't know, man, Doc. Like you tell me, man. Like you're more recent than me. I served.
Well, I think like most people tend to join on or used to join on good intentions. Like we've kind of hammered down where it's like they want to serve like because it's a family tradition, it's something they feel is honorable of serving your country. But within the last few years, like with the blow up of social media, TikTok, and all this, that's really what majority of people do. It's like it's a using of a uniform for boosting of their image and persona or whatever, which like whatever. But I think that's been the huge shift. So it's become a lot more like this egotistic self-centeredness about it, which
I mean, just join the military just to take the TikTok video with the gun and the tank in the background.
Yeah, like it's really what it's become. And it's like I have boys who are recruiters that like they tell me this stuff all the time. It's just like, well, like, and which is fair, like whatever, like that's their own prerogative, but granted it's wrong. But yeah, it's been more kind of self-centered on that route. And there's still a mixture of good kids that kind of want to do what's right. But yeah, the more you kind of find out, and it's like I think a majority of my time there was maybe only a handful of kind of like base dudes, and a lot of them were on the fringe, like kind of like far right a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that.
And it was only a handful of that, but everyone else was kind of normie tier based and believed most all like narratives. So like I was kind of stuck in this in between because I'd been watching conspiracy theories things, and even still that didn't stop me from watching things like Loose Change, like Zeitgeist movie, and like dumb stuff like that. But like I still kind of understood a lot of these low-key things, and I still joined, and only a handful of people I'd seen that throughout my career, but it was more primarily infantry cats that were smarter on that aspect.
So bro, it's infantry, but you know what, man? Like a lot of special operations.
Yep.
And that's what's interesting too.
That makes perfect sense because those are people that are like in the real world, like on the ground levels, seeing the world as it is. That would make sense that they would be more.
Well, I mean, they're compartmentalized on a certain level, but they're interacting with also things that a lot of other people aren't as well, like on the ground in that way. And so it's not matching up necessarily to the narrative that's going on. But I mean, you've also got to have more intelligence even to be a part of that as well. It's interesting. You've got to be intelligent and basically sociopathic. And so that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. So the Spec Ops community is pretty on point with a lot of stuff. They see things on a little bit, like you said, on that perspective, because you see things from the ground. And then when they study a lot of history, especially when they're going into certain like areas. So it's like understanding the history, the dynamics, the wars that they kind of get into. You start seeing these patterns start repeating. It's the same thing, you know what I mean? So it's like once you start seeing certain patterns, you learn the lay of the land, then it's like you start seeing it kind of everywhere. And that's kind of what happened eventually with me as well. Like I was hearing a little bit of everything, reading everything. So then eventually it's just like, okay. And like for me, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And then where it was just like, okay, realistically speaking, the military works for the banks, and all of this is just war propaganda. And if you read Schmetley Butler, like war is a racket. It's like people making money is like Lockheed Martin and all these huge like corporations. And it's just like realistically, it's a never-ending war. It's a never-ending revolution.
Well, look at. Did you guys see that Project Veritas BlackRock insider video that what's his name just released? Actually, not Project Veritas. What's James O'Keefe? He's doing his own company now. He just got this. Oh, you didn't see that? Wow, maybe I should pull that up. It's pretty interesting. They got this BlackRock guy on some, what he thought was a Tinder date. And he's just like, yeah, he's like, well, we just buy the senators. War's really good for business. The war.
Oh yeah, no, I did see that. Yeah.
But you know what's like,
oh, go ahead.
Forgive me. What's interesting is I find though too, like he's saying the right things, but how much of it is a guy bragging on a date too? Like, I know that like we perceive BlackRock as doing this thing, but I try to just take that, 30,000 foot perspective and how much of it's just him also bragging, just some dumb dude that's a recruiter. You know what I mean? And trying to sound like a badass.
For sure. Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure. But it's still big when you got somebody in the company saying that too. Slow Boy goes, he's a Luciferian. Well, for sure, but still though, you can still see a video and it can still be eye opening, right?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. And some people do accept it and they look into it, but some people don't want to look at the reality of what things really are. It's like, and I think that's the hard part of people to kind of like really look at themselves. And it's like, am I really fighting for freedom and to defend America, or am I in an organization that is just meant to continuously push war and like push all this like alphabet soup like stuff into other countries and completely destabilize, so then that way other countries can make more profit, like, which is really what it is.
It's the corporations, it's the transnational corporations. But like kind of I think back to something earlier too as well that I find sort of challenging is like, I know like one guy at my church recently joined, and it hadn't really talked to me, and it was only a guy I saw there a few times, and I wondered if he'd asked me what I would say, because at the same time too, like you're going to be lining up with some solid people, but with all the Skittles people though too as well, and that type of stuff, I mean, NATO, and I think Ukraine's a prime example, but NATO has said flat out, like, our job as part of NATO is to promote that agenda. They've just flat out blatantly
Slava Ukraine, bro.
We'll take our Skittles. Take the Skittles.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing that's kind of hard, because then, okay, but what else do guys have nowadays? That's what's hard. Because I know that helped me in certain ways too, the challenge of it and stuff like that. And I don't know that in the over feminized world what the outlet is for guys. I struggle with that because I talk to some of the other guys at church about this at times as well, because you see the younger guys coming in and they're looking for that. And obviously we're trying to help on some of that, because I mean, how many guys too, they don't even have fathers as well. They're very, not only is society feminized, but they're raised by mom, and I know the military could, I don't know now that it does, but at least at one point and even very recently offered a counterbalance type, but I don't know that even exists any longer. And I don't know, like that's something I struggle with, because I know that this is needed, and I'm not sure where else they can get some of this stuff. And that's what's really hard tough. For me.
For sure. I have younger brothers, so I think about that a lot, is, and they, their dad isn't around either. So it's tough for them. But that's one role I think that the church does fill, is that, that community. And like, we have a brotherhood at our church. Those kind of things are really good for especially young men to have, to be around older masculine men, to do activities together and stuff, to see what a real man does and what's expected of them and things like that.
And I agree with you on that, but I guess my thing is, like, there's not everybody's in the church too as well. Yeah, and maybe they're going to find their way, and I do agree. I mean, because somebody even said build the church. I agree. I'm always so inclined to like be a smart ass. So excuse me.
No, go for it.
No. But I mean, it is the way that, I mean, that's the truth. But like, there's this whole other group of guys that maybe will be a part of the church, but how do you save them that they're not in the church? We
could just start a fight club, dude. Let's just start a fight club.
Yeah, that's good. Let's do Fight Club. Let's do some of that nihilism.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what a great segue. I've heard you guys talk about nihilism, the Ubermensch, Nietzschean type spirit being very prevalent in the military. Could you guys speak on that? What are your experiences on that? And is that sort of a recurring thing that you've noticed, the sort of nihilism and Nietzschean type thinking?
Yeah, it really is, because there's a lot of guys.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember, because I remember too, like, there was a guy that was running around Instagram, and he put a book out, and it was like this whole manosphere kind of book. I don't remember what it is, because I ended up ordering it just because I was curious what was inside of it. And it was so pro Nietzsche. And I saw a lot of people posting this guy's stuff, because, it's like the people that go around. I didn't realize kind of, the Christ, you're a Christ cuck. You're a Christ cuck, bro.
Yeah.
It really, like, it's so individualistic. It's so Luciferian, and it's so, and that's what's always so interesting too when it comes to Nietzsche, because Nietzsche really appreciated Dostoevsky, and said that Dostoevsky was the best psychologist he'd ever seen. And I read a lot of Dostoevsky before I became Orthodox, which I think probably, really helped to provide a basis for that. But, it's that competitive degeneracy, because, I mean, you get rid of God and you don't really there's chaplains in the military, but it's not really promoted in a lot of ways, that aspect of it. And you promote all
being
of
good,
these,
being strong, all that stuff is more valued, right? Like, how strong are you? Are the best of the best, right? That kind of mentality. Will to power.
And I mean, and I'm not sure that that's always 100% wrong, but when it's tied together with a very secular backbone, then it's wrong. That's where the challenge really lays in it. Because, I mean, the thing is too, dude, like you had mentioned, you asked, I mean, I don't know how many times, honestly, and again, like I got involved in doing things with women, and the reason why I was doing stuff and things like that was just to impress my boys. It wasn't really like, I mean, yeah, there was probably a part of it too where I was like, oh, cool. But I mean, for the most part, it was just trying to competitively impress others. And it's a very reinforced kind of thing. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, there's a big pressure of just kind of trying to be this this manly man, I guess, you know what I mean? And it's just like, who can, like, even for me, when I went through corps school and like my initial training as a corpsman, like my chief, he was this retired guy, and he was always telling me, he's like, yeah, it's like, you want to drink more than them, you're gonna run more than them, you're gonna carry more than them, you know what I mean? And just like, I kind of took it to heart, whereas it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be better than them at literally everything. So you go in with that mentality, because it's like, for us, for like me as a corpsman, it's like I was not just like the medic or whatever. It was also, I was mom, dad, like a chaplain, like giving them life advice and all kinds of stuff. So I had to be able to hang with the boys, because if I couldn't hang, then you couldn't be trusted. And that was the reality of things. So like you do get coaxed into a lot of things like that, or
I can see that for sure. Yeah, you need to earn respect for sure by the people.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you can't hang, then and if they lose all trust in you, then you're done for. And it's like, and they understand that there's a lot at risk, because it's like, realistic. We went to war, you know what I mean? Well, kind of, sort of, but you know what I'm saying? And it's like, we understand the reality of things, that it's like, we also kind of push each other to a point where it's it's downright like criminal sometimes. But if you don't push yourself past a certain point, then it's like, because the enemy at any given point, like, you don't know, you're going to be tired. And it's when you're tired and exhausted when things go bad. So if you can't push past that in training, then you're not going to make it. And it's the same thing with like our ascetical life. If we don't practice all the hard stuff now, when things are easy, when things get extremely difficult, it's going to be harder. That's the last place you want to be learning how to do things, is on the fly. And I've seen people get hurt on the fly trying to learn things. And I understand that it's like, it's training, but it serves such a higher purpose if you actually take it serious for what it's instilled to be. Which is one thing I did appreciate and love with the military, like all the suffering. Granted, at the end of the day, it kind of almost meant nothing, but it did in a sort of way, because it's like, it prepared me to like all the things now of like what Orthodoxy offers, of like that asceticism.
Yeah,
it's like,
and now you have your own experience, that you've seen it yourself.
Yeah,
and you can kind of understand things a little better from a firsthand experience.
Yeah, and I think that there's that discipline and hierarchy that exists in the military. It translates well into Orthodoxy.
I could have definitely used some of that. That would have helped me out a lot. So I see that being a good aspect to the military, is the discipline and that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And that's part of too. I think, because like, honestly, I even considered at times as well, so kind of stopping what I was doing, and I talked with Father Turbo about it a bit and everything, and he was like, no, he's like, you're reaching people, and he's like, you just keep doing it. And I was like, all right, you think I should? I'm going to listen to him.
Yeah, Father Turbo's great, man. What an awesome guy! And every time that they upload a Royal Path episode, it's a good day. I wanted to ask you guys, what's some of the worst stuff you've either exposed or seen while doing the work that you guys do?
I guess it's like almost a variety of things, because it's the military, everything it's kind of done up to this point, from like the horrible living conditions, like mold exposures, where we had one that there was in base housing, and like the base housing office would not get these people out of this house, to the point where 2 kids were hospitalized, and eventually that came up, huge lawsuit, and they won and stuff like that. But it's like these things continually happen, and like they don't do anything about it. Or even just a lot of the stuff with the jab that's been going on, a lot of stuff that's been swept underneath, people that are trying to get silenced for speaking out against it. Even like in one of the schoolhouses, there was people that are in charge and high commands officers that are sleeping and assaulting students. So it's like it goes very deep from things like that, and it's always a continuous thing of just.
And then that seems to be just getting worse too. And I mean, that's been like so recent though, watching the way the military, with what they did with the jab with people. And it was so funny too. Like, I think the funniest thing, I mean, it was awful what they're doing to people. Then they turn around and then they kicked out a bunch of people, but then they're like, oh, hey guys, hey, come on back. We're only
my bad.
We're only at 60% right now. So, hey, we could really use you guys. Promise we won't do this again. Pinky promise, guys.
Right.
And I think that was such a betrayal. See, I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of betrayals. There's been so many different things that I've seen where it's been on a smaller level, but that was such a broad level of that it's just like, it's just so unforgivable, man. Because I mean, I know I was talking to Doc when he was going through this stuff, and I couldn't even imagine, because there's so many guys. Like, there's guys that were even up to like 19 years in the military, and they got booted because they wouldn't take that thing.
That is so. Oh man, I just feel so bad for those people, dude. Like, you put so much time in, and then you just get the plug pulled right at the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, because as like he's talking about, you've got like people running like these school things, like they're assaulting people and stuff like that. I mean, bro, like, Doc, man, you put that thing up. I was reading it when I was eating my burrito earlier. That about that girl at Pendleton. You there, Doc?
Yeah. So
what, was she 13?
13, and like the original story is that or alleged, right, that a Marine brought a 13-year-old girl on base. But there's also comments saying that she was on Tinder pretending to be 18. So there's a lot of weird like things that still have to get put into context. But just, it's not the first time things like this has happened. It's not. But Pendleton has had a few cases of Marines trafficking human beings from Mexico. So it's like, it's not out of the realm of possibility of something like that being true. So it's like,
but the thing is too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, but it's like this stuff just seems to be happening more. Do you know what I mean?
Because there's an increase for sure.
Right. Because there is no moral backbone any longer, because it's like the Skittles community is, par excellence, the achievement right now. So because of that, everybody else that follows up and along a part of it, they're doing worse things, and it grows exponentially.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely the moral degradation on average in the country and in the broader world, it affects everything in every aspect of life, for sure. Will eventually, it just gets worse and worse.
Well, and it's funny too, because you had asked about some stuff too, and I was looking at the chat here as well. The thing is, like, in the military, there was always people we knew that were gay. Like, there always were, and it was like people would be like, "Oh yeah, that's my roommate." Like, it was sort of that sort of thing. And like, "Oh, you go everywhere with your roommate." Got it. You know what I mean? Right. And it's just like, okay, whatever, bro. And they were always corpsmen.
Yeah.
You can confirm.
What is that? Is there a reason for that?
What do you think? So like, we have the nickname called Pecker Checkers. So like,
or penis machinist.
Yeah. So it's like Marines or whoever, like, they know to go to medical, and if something's going on with like STDs and things like that, like I wish they would come like in a polite way and be like, "Hey man, can I talk to you about something that's going on in my life?" It's like, no, they show up to your room they pull down their pants and they're like, bro, does this look infected to you?
What is that? What is this?
Or like,
is this normal?
Yeah, or they're like, Doc, I was wiping, and then I look, and there's this thing on my butthole, and they're like pants down, like spread, and it's like, my brother in Christ, I just woke up. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like,
but
then
but
there's
you know,
a
the
lot
good
of
thing is they
corpsmen
trust
that are gay
you.
too.
They
Yeah,
trust you.
yeah. There's a trust, but then there's also like like other like situation where some dudes are like gay, and so it's just kind of like it's a plus side for them, I guess.
And come on over.
And I've had people,
hours.
and I've had people like come to me instead because their corpsman was gay, and then like, but I didn't understand the situation that was going on, and I was an Afghan, and then when one of my boys is like, "Hey, Doc, can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Sure, dude, what's up?" He's like, "I think I busted my hernia and my mesh," and I'm like, "Well, go to your doc, bro. Like, what?" He's like, "I don't want to go to so and so," and I'm like, "Why not?" And they're like, "You know why?" And I'm like, "All right, bro, whatever." And then he's like, and I'm like, "Okay," and then I'm like, "Wait, have you talked to him already?" And he's like, "Yes," and I'm like, "Well, what did he tell you?" And then he got really quiet, and I'm just like, "What happened?" And he's like, "Well," he's like, "I dropped my pants," and like, so he was checking to see if he had like his hernia had busted through like into his like testicles, you know what I mean? So you do have to check and kind of there's a small opening in between where like your vas deferens and the tubing and everything goes down. So sometimes you do have to check up there, or you make them cough, or you can put like your nail or something kind of sharp and go against the side of the leg, and it should kind of pull up a little bit, whatever. Right. But this dude is like that other corpsman is like checking, and he's like, and then the Marine's like, interesting. He's like, "What is it, Doc?" And he's like, "I don't know. Let me go find someone who knows what they're doing."
Oh no.
So yeah, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, man, can't these dudes just like, if you don't know what you're doing, like, don't make things, don't make it harder for me. And I had to take care of this guy, and he didn't have like, his hernia was fine, but yeah, things like that kind of happen, and just it's like, bro, like, that trust is like lost.
Yeah. So I got through most of the question notes that I have written down. I have a few tabs pulled up that on articles related to Orthodoxy and the military and the war and stuff. And since I titled the video this, I think just to not give them a total ripoff, I'll read a little bit. I'll read a little bit.
You gotta get your money's worth now, boys.
Yes, exactly. So before I do that, I'm gonna just because I have the tab pulled up, I'll share the Instagram page for DD, just show people what I was talking about in terms of like the brown water and stuff. I'm not gonna go too far because then I'm gonna show them these feet pictures that you post, but stuff like this. I mean, this is crazy, man.
Yeah, and it's like, these are like, this is from a hospital.
What?
Portsmouth Hospital in Virginia. So like, it's not even just like barracks, it's like the main hospitals and stuff. So like, that's the worst part. You think it's like, oh, it's a military hospital, and like as much money as, you know, they quote unquote invest on military defense, they can't even fix the infrastructure in most general hospitals and stuff.
Right. So. Yeah, you've got a bunch of pictures like
that.
Yeah, I saw. I was scrolling past real fast. The black mold stuff is really nasty too, man. I used to post a lot of those pictures. Like, I never would have thought that that was the conditions of a lot of these bases. You know, you'd think like with all it's the government, right? They have a lot of money. You think that they would have like at least nice places. Maybe not state of the art, but at least not filled with black mold.
No, that money is going offshore to be laundered. That's where all the money's going.
Right.
So to Cyprus bank accounts in Panama by way of Ukraine right now. But it was Afghanistan and Iraq before.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that does make sense though. Yeah, so this is from the OCA. I know, but it seemed pretty decent. War and nonviolence. So yeah, if you guys have anything to say about it, then just interrupt me. Tell me to shut up. Question. So what about the Orthodox relation to war? The fact that the Orthodox have blessed the military seems to contradict your entire position, not to mention the teaching of Jesus about nonviolence. And it says, on the contrary, we would hope that the Orthodox position relative to the military supports what we have already discussed. Christ taught that perfection requires the love of enemies and the absolute renunciation of resisting evil by evil. Thus, if a man will be perfect, he will renounce the relative values of this world totally and will not participate in any act which is morally ambiguous. In this way, for example, the church forbids the bearing of arms to its clergy and does not allow a man to continue in the ministry who has shed blood, theoretically, even in an accidental way. However, the Orthodox Church follows Christ and the apostles in teaching that the relative and morally ambiguous life of this world requires the existence of some form of human government, which has the right and even the duty to wield the sword for the punishment of evil. In the Gospels, for example, we do not find Christ or John the Baptist of the apostles commanding the soldiers which they met to cease being soldiers. Even the early Christians bore the arms of the pagan Roman state for the welfare of society in this world. But still, if a man will be perfect and give his life totally to Christ, he will of necessity renounce the military service as well as any political service, which always and of necessity is involved with relativistic values and greater and lesser evils and goods. Such a man will also renounce his possessions and follow Christ totally and in everything. Thus, total pacifism is not only possible, it is the sign of greatest perfection, the perfection of the kingdom of God. According to the Orthodox understanding, however, pacifism can never be a social or political philosophy for this world. Although, once again, a nonviolent means to an end is always to be preferred in every case to a violent means. When violence must be used as a lesser evil to prevent greater evils, it can never be blessed as such. It must always be repented of, and it must never be identified with perfect Christian morality. Also, one final point of great importance is that Christians who are involved in the relativistic life of this world must resist military conscription when the state is evil. But when doing so, they must not yield to anarchy, but must submit to whatever punishment is given so that their witness will be fruitful.
You heard it here, gentlemen. The state is evil, so don't join.
That's right.
Simple as.
Yeah, well, that's a important point though, is that it's like they're not saying, oh, you're definitely evil if you're defending your country, but like that, it's not good. It's not. It still needs to be repented of, even if you kill someone in battle, right? The early church fathers, they didn't really compare it to. They didn't call it a murder, but they're like, it's definitely like that's not a good thing, even though it was done for a good end in some cases, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's been like the biggest struggle for me in Orthodoxy and stuff like that. I guess I'm a violent person. Like, let's just be honest. Like, I'm a violent person, and coming to terms with a lot of those things like that, and especially like the feelings and inclinations that I have at times, and having like discussions in the confession and such, because I can't help it. It's I'm trying to help it, but it's definitely like a part of my soul that I struggle with at times. But it's so true, because I mean, at the end of the day, you come back to what you look, whether it's the lives of the saints, you look at the apostles, you look at a lot of the things they went through. I mean, look what happened to Paul. I mean, yes, we know what happened to Christ, the suffering that he endured on his crucifixion, but Paul, like, how many times he was close to death before he was finally put to death, and he suffered through for his willingness to fight for this. And it's the right way to go. And I still struggle with that at times, because I have a way that I want to respond that I have to resist responding in that way. It's very difficult. But I know it's the right way. And it's just one of those things, I mean, what is it like? Isn't it in Romans too, where Paul talks about like, how troubled he is by his own, what the flesh does to us, the things that we want to do and everything like that. And it's true, because if you really, you give yourself over to Christ, it's not like, I mean, it's the old man creeps through at times like that. You respond, and you can't help it, especially when it's like things get really challenging and such like that. And it's just, I pray. One of the things I had found I prayed for, and always be careful if you pray for this, praying for patience. Your patience is going to be tested in ways that it's not like, it's not a magic trick. It's not like, woohoo, okay, here you go. Now you got patience. The wand gets waved. No. But nevertheless, I digress. The thing is like, I pray to help me to not always respond this way and be better when it comes to stuff like this. Because it's one of those things, because we both Doc and I, we've helped we've been the vessels to help lead people. And I talk with people about stuff like this as well. At times that helps me, you know what I mean? Because other people are struggling with this. It's not, none of it's easy, you know what I mean? But it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, we all have to deal with that. Our instincts denying our sort of inclinations, whether it's anger or lust or any of these things. Like we have these routines that we built up in our secular life that once we become Christians, it takes time. It's a process, And so I know my father confessor has told me, trust the process. Don't expect it all to happen right away, and just trust in God that with time, it's going to get easier.
Well, a great story too is like St. Moses the Black. I mean, that was a guy. I mean, a marauding thief leading men through the desert and everything like that. And when he had come to a monastery and what he experienced there, it changed him, but it took him time. There was a lot because, I mean, he was very of this world, fornication, things like that. And, to become the man. I mean, that's a guy I often recite troparians of, because it helps me. It's things like that. St. George as well.
Yep.
Being in touch with things like that, because there's other people that have experienced some of these challenges, and there's learnings that and that's what's important, I think, as well, when you compare Orthodoxy to Protestantism, and I guess you could even say papal Protestantism, because while papists, they do tend to follow some of the church father saint type stuff, they tend to discount a lot of it, and you don't have, I think, some of these important pieces, important aspects, but there's so much learning from the saints, and like what Doc was saying, like things can be difficult now, and we know they're going to be tougher, but that's important. That's why you should be reading the lives of the saints, because it gets you in touch with that aspect of it.
Oh yeah, that is very important. I actually talked about this with Father McHale about my priest was saying something like prayer is breath, and reading the scripture is food, and the lives of the saints is like taking a multivitamin in the spiritual life. And I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that. We got a super chat from Basla Analyzer for $3.22. He says, for his honor, etc., still valued at all in the modern military? Is honor valued still in the modern military, do you guys think?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of tough because it's like it all the meaning of honor has been so skewed now to a point where it's just like it's not in an honorable way, like the way we would read like some kind of war hero. I mean, that kind of in a way does, but then it when you understand what it all means, it kind of takes that away, you know what I mean? And it's like honor does kind of exist. So it's like when you see someone with chest candy and they have all these high ribbons, high awards, it's like, man, like you respect someone like that because they've done.
Not if he's an officer.
Yeah.
Because, he wrote himself up for all those.
Yeah,
medals.
He probably, But when it's like an enlisted guy, like a regular, like Joe Schmo that gets this high award, there's definitely an honor and a respect for someone that has done things that just seem humanly impossible, you know what I mean? And just things like that. There is like a type of honor, and you respect those kind of guys. But then you also kind of have to be weary, because then sometimes those kind of guys they do come from the political game can get to their head real fast. Like people that have gotten Medal of Honors that are just turned into shills.
Like I could become a senator or something, or
they become big shills for like the military industrial complex and for like the current narrative.
Yeah. But bro, there's some people who got Medal of Honors that weren't really deserving of that without naming names. But I think we both know like there's that type of stuff, and they've used
Dakota
it to
Meyer
their advantage.
Really, I didn't know about
Dakota
that.
Meyer.
Yeah. There's
a sneeze there. Woof.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff. Yeah.
Really,
around certain aspects of things that just.
And I think something you should understand too, especially when it's a special operations community and it's officers in those communities, you'll find there's a considerable number of those guys that join up with that with complete political intentions from the beginning. And they try to do as little as possible, but they're using it as a stepping stone. Like it's kind of one of those things, friends, family type stuff. They learn like this is a good way to go. Like you can make it through this, and that's going to be something really good to put on your resume. in order to do it. But, I think there is a certain level of honor that exists, but I think it's dwindling more and more, especially as they're elevating things that haven't been elevated in the past. We're going to see more and more of that because, look, you got these non-binary Skittles folks on TikTok talking about, if I have to come into your community and I've got to shoot you because you're not giving up your gun, I could never imagine hearing somebody else that I was serving with saying stuff like that. And they're going on TikTok and bragging about their willingness to do things like that. Right. And so there's a shift, a definite tearing of the fabric of reality of the military that's going that way. And
looking forward, what do you see? Obviously, I think we all agree it's going to get worse like that. What do you think in 10, 20 years? Do you think with the whole globalist thing, do you think everything is going to be a lot different than it is now? Like America is a superpower, all of this. Realistically, in just your perspective, where do you see it going?
Okay, so I think we're headed to some really interesting times. I think that, and I'm trying to figure out what the goal is here that's trying to be achieved, because look, we know honestly that there's people with money and power that are trying to create situations where there's going to be a shock wave, and there's a part of me that feels like a lot of this type stuff that we're seeing coming from this left side is trying to create that right reaction. And I think, either way, it's for the destruction of the United States, either direction, because what in many ways, in the rumblings that you hear a lot of this, it's building up to some kind of right-wing fascist sort of response to that. And a lot of people
seems they're trying to goad that response. Yeah. What's it's like that meme? What's that thing? Do a terrorist attack or something. They're poking the conservatives. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is because you see that more and more. There's a lot more people that, because we're basically in a Weimar situation in a lot of ways, and you see a lot of people speaking. Well, how did you respond to Weimar?
And suddenly, for no reason at all, they started voting it.
Yeah. And it wasn't suddenly for no reason, but it was a forced kind of thing. Because look, if you start getting into the reality of what the Anglo-American establishment is, our intelligence community was trained by British intelligence. It was built up, OSS, CIA, all these things like this. This is stuff from Chatham House. This is stuff that it's all existed. You could read Quigley with the Tragedy and Hope. It was specifically set up this way. And it was a way for the British to regain control of this, and whatever aspects of the British, that whatever that is, I guess at this point, it's all for a destructive cause that worships mammon, and the nationalism, the gun culture, the pride that has existed in America for a long time is being shifted. That pride is now the gay pride. There's a lot of intentional machinations that are being done to do that in, the military. I wonder what's going to happen because, let me see if I can gather my thoughts here exactly.
Yeah, I don't know which way it's going to go. I honestly don't know if this country's I don't know if this country will still sort of be the head of the NWO, but it'll just be very different, or if they're just going to drop it to the ground, demolish it, and have China be the new head or something, and
that's
global system. Well, that's what I'm wondering.
And that seems to be there's a push for that. And often I'm always questioning the layers, the levels when they're saying some of these things like that. But you can see that there's a big push for that type of a thing, a situation like that. We think things are bad now, and people. This is just back to kind of what I was saying. If you've got a Protestant-dominated fascist government, how do you think they're going to treat Orthodox? You know what I mean? Because it's going to be very rigorous what they're doing, and we're certainly not going to fit into that type of thing. And I would warn anybody from Orthodoxy that thinks that that's going to be something that they're going to be able to fall in path with. And it's always kind of funny too, because you hear people saying that like the Nazis were like supported Christianity, and they only supported Christianity in areas where it was to their advantage. They were very occultic, and there's a lot to support that.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean, and that's back to that Nietzschean type thing. That's just the foundation for that type of stuff. And there's not enough people in the military. I don't know, man. Maybe there still is. Because it's always, in order to regain control of a military that's out of hand, it's like that upper middle rank. It's not quite the generals, but you're looking at like the majors and maybe like lieutenant colonels, or whatever. It's those guys that tend to help things get in line, but they've done a lot to purge people. Right. So I don't know that can help right the ship. I mean, look, man, at the end of the day, like I wonder sometimes, like it's always end times, right? But we've shifted in a lot of ways, and especially if you follow Father Peter Here's Revelation series and things like that, there's a lot of things that seem to indicate, we're headed down a bad path. Repentance can take us away from that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's been enough repentance in this country, and I'm not sure that we're going to get to that point.
Yeah, I've said a few times on this channel, to just tell people to be prepared for persecutions, be prepared for people to come out, as orthodoxy grows and as more people come into the church, the attacks are going to keep coming, and times can get tough. And so I definitely think that as Orthodox, if we're truly living our faith, that we will be better prepared for those sort of persecutions than the average person. But to not think like, oh, I'm just going to get to the church and then it's all hunky-dory from here. Because I think a lot of people who are hovering outside of the church and like, I'm going to get in eventually. It's like, no, that's not the finish line. That's the starting line.
Yeah.
Like, hit the frick in there.
Yeah.
Like, so.
I guess that's sort of that confusion that comes with like, I'm saved now. Everything's good. That Protestant type thing. And it's like, no. When you get baptized, you get chrismated, that's the start.
Right.
And I was saying too, it's like, man, it gets harder, doesn't it? And it does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
there's so much work to be done.
Yeah. Honestly, I think another aspect is like I was reading a lot of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and that's what kind of clued me in as well, of kind of like where the military is going, where it's like there's that slow decline, but it's like he openly admits, he's like, I was part of that issue, that problem, because I didn't stop and do all these things. And there are Christians that are there, but it's like, who knows how many denominations of Christians and if they all even believe in the same way. And it's like, and if the jab wasn't enough to kind of stop them in that way and they went with it, it's like, what else will they give into? So that's another thing that I've been kind of looking at it in that way. It's like anything, God can make anything happen at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the way I see it is just like, it's going in that way. It's like you purge the people that are going to fight back. And the last 2 years has been a clear, even before that, like during the Obama administration, was like all the people that were arguing against or fighting back, eventually they were all pushed out. A lot of the war fighters that started seeing the reality of certain things, and they were pushed out for more liberal, quote unquote, or more left-leaning generals and stuff like that, which pushed us to the point that we are now. So it was that slow decline a little bit. And then now even it's more of that neo-Marxism that people completely miss sometimes, where a lot of these stuff is like coming from, where even like Germany, it's the Frankfurt schools that were pushing a lot of this stuff really early on throughout all of Eastern Europe. So it's like people forget sometimes that detail, and even the stuff that was coming over from the Bolsheviks and all that. So it's like,
but bro,
there's that aspect that I know it gets really convoluted sometimes, but
the Bolsheviks had Wall Street sponsoring, man.
Yep,
like
they did.
You know what I mean? And
people
so those
forget
people,
that.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like with a lot of this stuff, like what we're seeing with the intrusions that's occurring and everything like that. These were things that we were using overseas at other places. Whether like with the color revolutions, whether it was like USAID, State Department, CIA working closely with George Soros and stuff like that to overthrow these governments. I mean, because like
Latin
if you
America,
really follow what happened in Ukraine too, especially where what we did with, I mean, there was a point in what's that?
We put Big Z in from all that stuff.
Well, but the thing was like 2013, 2014. 2013, there was a point where I think only 30% phones. By the next month, 80% of the population had cell phones. And USAID and a lot of those organizations were pushing those out there. And then 3 new television stations came online. That was what the hell, what overthrew Yanukovych. over there, and that was what took down, you know, that alignment. And then NATO moves in as well. And I mean, you can go into the whole Maidan massacre, where there were people over there that were firing rifles that weren't from Russia or Ukraine. Guess where they probably came from? You know what I mean? Like, there's been ways of things that have been done and instituted that our government and things that entities that they've sponsored have been used to help destroy places. And so now it seems to me that all of this activity that's occurred across the world is being focused on us now.
Yeah, it seems it's the same old story for sure. That's what's so funny when people are will detract on people exposing this stuff as conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. It's just such a joke. It's like, this has gone on for so long, and it's I mean, it's so ridiculous to laugh at the concept of a conspiracy as though it were absurd or something.
Yeah, and someone mentioned Michael Aquino in the comments earlier, and even just that in and of itself, it's like the whole psyop thing is like straight up satanic, because it's like imposing your will or the will of the military and the will of the U.S. And it's just like, then who is the U.S. controlled by? Banks and these big organizations and corporations. So it's what they want, and obviously it's nothing good. So who are they going to use? And they set all these things up through revolutions, and all of a sudden you train the good guy, and all of a sudden he becomes the bad guy in this country, and it's just a rinse and repeat of all these things.
Yeah,
I think it's important though too. You touched on something there, and I think this was something Jerry was asking here earlier too as well. You know, with that whole thing that do as thou wilt. You know, the Luciferian, you know, Crowleyan. That was totally what, you know, Michael Aquino was doing. And there's a lot of people that are that way. And I don't even know that people realize it. And I'm often curious, like, where that shift was, because it wasn't always that way. I mean, there were obviously elements of it, especially at the higher levels of the military, where there was some of that stuff. But it has really gone down to the lower levels, and you interact with people, and they have those attitudes. And I couldn't put my finger on it back then, but I can see it now, you know, how much of that stuff. And when it gets to that level, it's just, it's such a degradation of the culture in itself. And there's no honor when there's people like that running around.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I'm going to get off this hot porch. I really thank you guys so much for coming on, for sharing your experience, and for telling us about all the stuff that you guys have been doing on your Instagram pages and your YouTube pages. I hope everybody will go and subscribe to their YouTube channel. They need more YouTube subscribers, and definitely follow their Instagram page. And
we do have a Telegram as well.
Oh, nice. You should send me that link. I'll put it in the description after the video.
Yeah, I'll give you that, because that's like a rally point that we've got. So when we get taken out, that's always like a place where we can regroup and people can find us again.
That's true. Yeah. You said which iteration of the page are you guys on now? How many times?
41st.
Really? Wait, really? That many times?
Oh yeah. I mean, because I'm counting like Facebook iterations too as well.
Wow. Well, then you know you're over the target, right, when you're getting the flack. So that's great, man. That's it's not great that you're getting deleted, but that's great that it's having an impact, that they're taking notice at least. Yeah, man. Thank you guys so much. Is there anything else either of you guys want to plug or mention before we wrap up?
Man, I'm good. I appreciate it though. Thanks, man. You know, it's good talking to you.
Thanks for having us on, bro. Like, it means a lot.
Absolutely. Keep doing good work out there, guys. And thank you to Jason. I saw Jason, you sent in a $5 chat. I really appreciate that, brother. And thank you to everybody that has supported the show today and in the past. And that's it, guys. Till next time, God bless, and I'll see y'all later.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Peace.